They tried to gift my apartment to my sister, so I showed them what real boundaries look like. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. I'm a 34-year-old man who's worked hard to get where I am. After college, I spent 6 years saving every penny, working overtime, and living with roommates in a cramped apartment until I could finally afford the down payment on my own place. My 2-bedroom condo isn't extravagant, but it's in a nice neighborhood with a short commute to my office, and most importantly, it's mine. I paid for it myself, without help from anyone. My sister Emma, who's 32, has always been the family favorite. She's always had a flair for drama and an expectation that things would work out for her without much effort. While I was working double shifts, she was jumping between jobs, traveling whenever she felt like it, and counting on our parents to bail her out whenever money got tight. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. We've had our sibling rivalries over the years, but we've generally gotten along well enough. At least, that's what I thought until last week, when my entire understanding of my family dynamics came crashing down around me. It was a regular Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten home from work and was unwinding with a beer when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emma standing there with a rental truck parked on the street and 2 of her friends carrying boxes. "Surprise!" she announced, pushing past me into the apartment. "Mom and Dad said you'd be stubborn about this, but I figured if I just showed up, you'd have to deal with it." I stood there, completely confused, as her friends started bringing boxes into my living room. "What are you doing?" I asked, blocking the doorway as one of her friends tried to squeeze past with a large houseplant. "Moving in," Emma said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Mom and Dad promised me I could have your place for my 30th birthday. They said it was time you found somewhere bigger anyway, and since you have that promotion coming up." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Emma, this is my apartment. I bought it. With my money. Mom and Dad can't just give it to you." Her face fell, and that familiar look of annoyance crossed her features, the same look she'd had since childhood whenever someone told her no. "Look, I know you're attached to this place, but Mom and Dad said it would be fine. They said you'd understand that I need it more than you do right now. My lease is up, and you know how expensive rent is in this city." I took a deep breath, trying to process what was happening. "I don't care what Mom and Dad said. This is my property. I bought it. My name is on the deed and the mortgage. They have no right to promise it to you, and you have no right to show up expecting me to just hand over the keys." The argument that followed was ugly. Emma accused me of being selfish, claiming our parents had assured her this would work out. Her friends awkwardly retreated to the truck, leaving us to our family drama. I finally managed to get her out of my apartment, but not before she left in tears, claiming I'd ruined everything. As soon as she was gone, I called my parents. The conversation was even worse than the one with Emma. They confirmed everything. They had indeed promised Emma my apartment as a family gift for her 30th birthday. When I pointed out that it wasn't theirs to give, my father's response floored me. "We've always shared everything in this family," he said. "Your mother and I didn't raise you to be so selfish with family resources." I hung up the phone in disbelief. The apartment I'd sacrificed for years to afford, skipping vacations, working weekends, and living on ramen, was apparently a family resource that my parents felt entitled to redistribute without so much as consulting me. I spent the night pacing my apartment, alternating between rage and confusion. How could they possibly think this was okay? Had they always viewed my achievements as community property? The worst part was realizing that Emma genuinely believed she was entitled to my home, that my years of hard work meant nothing compared to her needs in the moment. The next morning, Emma texted me a half-hearted apology, saying she should have called first, but still expressing hope that I'd reconsider once I calmed down. My parents left voicemails suggesting we discuss this like adults and find a compromise that works for everyone. But there was no compromise to be had. This was my home, purchased with my money, and the fact that my family couldn't see that made me question everything I thought I knew about them. I'm still in shock, sitting in my apartment surrounded by the life I built, wondering if my family has always seen me as nothing more than a resource to be tapped whenever Emma needs something. I don't know where to go from here, but I know I need to set some serious boundaries, and fast. Update. 1 month later. I never expected my post to get so much attention, but I appreciate all the support and advice. A lot has happened in the past month, so I wanted to share an update. After the initial confrontation, I took a few days to cool off before meeting my parents and Emma at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. I figured a public setting might keep things civil, and I was mostly right. They showed up looking like they expected a negotiation, not a boundary-setting conversation. We're glad you're ready to discuss this rationally, my mom started, stirring her latte. We understand you were surprised, but family should come first. I had prepared what I wanted to say, and I delivered it as calmly as I could. This isn't a negotiation. I'm here to make it absolutely clear that my apartment is my property, purchased with my money, and it's not available for anyone else to live in. Not Emma, not anyone. I'm not moving out, and I'm not sharing it. My father frowned. Son, I think you're missing the point. Emma's struggling right now, and you have the means to help. It's what family does. If you're so concerned about Emma having a place to live, why don't you offer her your house? I asked. Or help her with a down payment on her own place. The uncomfortable silence that followed spoke volumes. They had no intention of making any sacrifices themselves, they just wanted me to do it. Emma, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. I still think you're being incredibly selfish. I wouldn't even need the whole place. I could take the main bedroom and you could keep the smaller one. I nearly choked on my coffee. So your revised plan is that I should give you the master bedroom in my own apartment? Are you serious? Well, Mom and Dad said. Mom and Dad don't get to decide what happens with my property, I interrupted. I'm not sure why that's so hard to understand. The conversation deteriorated from there. My mother started crying, saying she'd failed as a parent if her children couldn't support each other. My father accused me of turning my back on family values. Emma just glared at me like I'd stolen something from her, rather than simply refusing to give up my home. I finally stood up to leave, but not before making myself clear. I love you all, but this situation has shown me that we need some serious boundaries. My apartment is off-limits. It's not a family resource. It's mine. And if you can't respect that, we're going to have problems. In the weeks that followed, I received a barrage of texts and calls from extended family members who had apparently heard a very distorted version of events. According to what they'd been told, I was throwing Emma out on the street after promising her she could stay with me. I spent far too much time correcting the record. Meanwhile, my relationship with my parents and Emma remained strained. They seemed to be waiting for me to come to my senses, while I was waiting for them to acknowledge the inappropriateness of what they'd tried to do. The situation came to a head last week when I came home to find Emma and my mother outside my building, attempting to charm the doorman into letting them up. Thankfully, he followed protocol and called me first. When I confronted them, my mother claimed they were just checking to see if I was okay, since I hadn't been answering all their calls. That was the last straw. I've since spoken with my building management about security protocols and made it clear that no one, including family, is to be given access to my apartment without my explicit permission. I've also contacted a lawyer friend who helped me draft a formal letter stating in no uncertain terms that any attempt to enter my apartment without permission would be treated as trespassing. Some might think this is an extreme reaction, but the entire situation has made me realize just how skewed my family's understanding of boundaries is. They genuinely don't seem to grasp that what they're doing is wrong. Emma eventually found a new apartment to rent with the help of our parents, who apparently co-signed her lease. I'm relieved she has a place to live, but frustrated that my parents enabled her instead of encouraging her to stand on her own feet like they forced me to do. I'm still processing all of this and trying to figure out what kind of relationship I want to have with my family moving forward. The unequal treatment has always been there, but I never realized just how deep it went until now. For the moment, I'm keeping communications minimal and focusing on reinforcing the boundaries I've set. I'll update again if anything significant changes. Update, 3 months later. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wish I could say things have improved, but the situation has only gotten more complicated. After sending the formal letter from my lawyer, my parents and Emma backed off temporarily. I thought they might finally be getting the message, and I cautiously began to respond to some of their messages. We even had a civil, if somewhat tense, family dinner where the apartment situation wasn't mentioned. I should have known it wouldn't last. 2 weeks ago, I went out of town for a business trip. I was gone for 4 days, and I didn't tell my family about my travel plans. Partly because we were still on shaky ground, and partly because I didn't think it was relevant information they needed to have. When I returned home Sunday evening, exhausted from travel, I immediately noticed something was off. The doorman greeted me with a concerned expression. "Mr. James, I wasn't sure what to do," he said. "Your sister came by on Friday with a moving truck. She had a key and insisted you knew about it. When I called your cell and couldn't reach you, I refused to let her up." My stomach dropped. She had a key. That's what she claimed. Said you gave it to her. I thanked him profusely for following protocol and went upstairs in a daze. Sure enough, there were scratch marks around my lock, evidence of an attempted entry. I immediately called a locksmith to change the locks, then reviewed the building's security footage with the manager. The video confirmed my worst fears. Emma had shown up with 2 friends and a small moving truck, claiming I had agreed to let her move in while I was away. She had tried to use what looked like a key, but it apparently didn't work, likely a copy of my parents' old emergency key that no longer fit since I'd changed the locks after the previous incident. When the doorman insisted on calling me and couldn't reach me, she'd created a scene, yelling that I was just trying to make things difficult, and that our parents had already worked everything out with me. I was shaking with anger by the time I finished watching the footage. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was a deliberate attempt to take advantage of my absence to move into my apartment against my explicit wishes. I immediately called my lawyer friend, who advised me to file a police report. I was hesitant to involve the police in a family matter, but he insisted it was necessary to establish a record of the attempted unauthorized entry. He also helped me draft a more strongly worded cease and desist letter. When I finally confronted my family about what had happened, their responses were even more delusional than I expected. "We were just trying to help," my mother claimed. "We knew you were out of town, and Emma's new place flooded. We figured you wouldn't mind if she stayed at your place temporarily." "With a moving truck?" I countered. "And why didn't you call me first?" "We didn't want to bother you on your business trip," my father said. "And we knew you'd just say no to be difficult." Emma was less diplomatic. "You have 2 bedrooms and you live alone. You're being ridiculous about this whole thing. It's not like I was going to steal your precious apartment. I just needed a place to stay." I took a deep breath. "If you needed a place to stay, you could have asked me directly. Instead, you tried to move in while I was gone, after I explicitly told you my apartment wasn't available." "That's not okay." "It's just family helping family," my mother insisted. "I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this." That's when I realized the fundamental disconnect. They genuinely couldn't comprehend that what they were doing was wrong. In their minds, family property was communal property, and my insistence on maintaining boundaries was the real transgression. Following my lawyer's advice, I've taken several steps to protect myself. 1. Filed a police report documenting the attempted unauthorized entry. 2. Installed a security camera at my front door. 3. Provided the building management with written instructions that no one, including family members, is to be given access to my apartment without my explicit verbal confirmation. 4. Sent the cease and desist letter to my parents and Emma. 5. Made copies of all my ownership documents and stored them securely. The most painful part of all this has been seeing how my family has reacted to these measures. Instead of acknowledging that they crossed a line, they've painted me as paranoid and hostile. My father called me disturbed for involving the police in what he still insists was just a misunderstanding. Emma has told mutual friends that I'm having some kind of breakdown and that they're all worried about me. It's a strange feeling to realize that the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally can't respect your most basic boundaries. I'm still processing what this means for our relationship long term, but for now, I've made it clear that I need space. I'm not cutting them off completely, but I'm drastically limiting our interactions until they can demonstrate that they understand and respect my boundaries. My apartment remains my sanctuary, my hard-earned piece of security in this world, and I'm more determined than ever to protect it. Final update. 6 months later. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm finally ready to share what happened after the attempted break-in incident. A lot has changed, and I think I've reached a point where I can talk about it all with some perspective. Following the security measures I implemented and the cease and desist letter, my family initially retreated into a wounded silence. For about a month, I barely heard from any of them except through passive-aggressive social media posts where Emma would vague-book about toxic family members, and my mother would share articles about ungrateful children. Then came the intervention. My Aunt Susan, my mother's sister and probably the most level-headed person in my extended family, reached out to me directly. Unlike everyone else, she actually asked for my side of the story before making judgments. After listening to everything that had happened, she was appalled. "This isn't normal, James," she told me. "I love my sister, but what they tried to do with your apartment was completely inappropriate." Susan, it turned out, had been watching the family dynamics from the sidelines for years and had noticed the pattern of favoritism toward Emma. She offered to help mediate a real conversation between all of us, and after some hesitation, I agreed. The family meeting took place at Susan's house. My parents and Emma arrived looking like they expected an apology from me. Instead, they got a reality check from Susan, who laid out in no uncertain terms how boundary-violating their behavior had been. "If James had tried to give away your house, would you have been okay with that?" she asked my parents point-blank. My father bristled. "That's different. We're the parents. And James is an adult who purchased his own property," Susan countered. "The fact that you can't see how wrong this is concerns me." What followed was a tense but necessary conversation about the family dynamics that had led us to this point. Susan helped me articulate how the pattern of favoring Emma had affected me throughout my life, from smaller incidents in childhood to this massive boundary violation with my apartment. To my surprise, Emma was the first to crack. After listening to me lay out how I'd worked for years to afford my place while she'd been given continuous financial support, something seemed to click for her. "I guess I never thought about it that way," she admitted quietly. "I always just assumed you had it easier because you were the responsible one." My parents were more resistant. My mother kept circling back to family helping family, while my father insisted that his intentions had been good. But Susan was relentless in holding them accountable, pointing out that good intentions don't justify trampling boundaries. By the end of that long, emotionally exhausting day, we'd reached a fragile understanding. No one was fully satisfied, but at least the issues were out in the open. My parents and Emma agreed to respect my boundaries regarding my apartment, and I agreed to work on rebuilding trust slowly. In the months that followed, the real healing began, but not in the way I expected. Emma and I started having one-on-one conversations without our parents involved. For maybe the first time in our adult lives, we spoke openly about the dynamics that had shaped our relationship. She admitted feeling constant pressure to live up to my accomplishments while simultaneously being told she didn't need to work as hard because the family would take care of her. "It's messed me up," she confessed during one of our coffee meetups. "I never developed the skills to support myself because Mom and Dad always stepped in. And then I resented you for being self-sufficient." These conversations weren't always easy, but they were necessary. Emma eventually found a therapist who helped her work through some of her entitlement issues, and she's made genuine progress. She recently got a stable job and has been learning to budget properly for the first time in her life. My parents have been a more complicated story. They've respected the physical boundary of my apartment, no more surprise visits or attempted break-ins, but they've struggled with the deeper implications of what happened. My mother still occasionally makes comments about how things used to be simpler when the family worked together, and my father has reverted to a kind of formal politeness that suggests he's still hurt by my betrayal. I've had to accept that they may never fully understand or validate my perspective. And that's okay. I've stopped seeking their approval and instead focused on building a life that feels right to me. The unexpected silver lining in all of this has been my relationship with Aunt Susan and other extended family members who reached out after hearing my side of the story. It turns out that many of them had observed the favoritism toward Emma over the years but had never felt it was their place to say anything. Now, I have a stronger support system within my family than I ever had before. As for my apartment, it's still mine, still my sanctuary. I've made some renovations over the past few months, painted the walls, upgraded the kitchen, bought new furniture. It feels even more like home now, perhaps because I had to fight to protect it. In some ways, the whole ordeal forced me to psychologically claim this space as truly mine in a way I hadn't fully done before. Emma has her own place now, a modest one-bedroom that actually fits her budget. She's decorated it herself and seems proud of it in a way she never was of her previous apartments. When she invited me over for dinner last month, I could see she was genuinely taking ownership of her life, possibly for the first time. My parents have downsized, selling their large house for a smaller condo after my father semi-retired. I helped them move, which felt like a symbolic reset in our relationship. We're building something new, not as close as before, perhaps, but more honest. The entire experience has taught me that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for a relationship is to set firm boundaries, even when it's painful. My family and I are still finding our way back to each other, but the foundation is stronger now because it's built on truth rather than obligation or unspoken expectations. I still have moments of anger when I think about how they tried to take away something I worked so hard for. But mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful that I stood my ground, grateful for the people who supported me, and grateful for the clarity this situation ultimately brought to my life. My apartment keys remain in my pocket alone, a small but significant symbol of the boundaries I've learned to set and the independence I've fought to maintain. And that, more than anything, feels like victory.